What's up, everyone? Tony the Cold Case Project here, and today we are going to be covering and featuring one of the videos I will be uploading on my new channel, the Hollywood Cold Case channel. Now, if you look down below in the description, as well as my link for my Rumble channel, you will also see a link to Hollywood Cold Case and one of our latest videos. So go check that out in your free time. And today we'll be covering the death of Bob Crane. Now, for those of you around my age, you probably remember going to some of the channels like Nick at Night and seeing some of those old shows from the 50s and 60s like My Three Sons and Gilligan's Island and the Donna Reed Show. And I remember watching some of these shows, these comedies, when I was a kid. And another one of these I remember seeing was Hogan's Heroes. Now, as I get older and into the world of unsolved mysteries, I found out that Bob Crane, the star of Hogan's Heroes, lived a very, very different lifestyle than some would have probably thought, especially one in a more conservative time, and met a very untimely demise. So let's get right into it. Hollywood has a short memory, and yet syndication may keep a celebrity's name in the spotlight for an extended period. It's not unusual, and not usually for the right reasons. Not all stars want to be remembered for their private lives, or horrific murders for that matter. Before becoming an actor and celebrity, Bob Crane was a radio broadcaster, interviewing celebrities like Marilyn Monroe. He was popular in the industry and became friends with TV writer Carl Reiner, who gave him a big break as an actor. Bob quickly rose to prominence and fame as star of the sitcom Hogan's Heroes, which was set in a World War II POW camp. He swiftly soared to prominence and became a household name, but his life at home with his wife and children began to fall apart. Bob married Ann Terzian, his high school sweetheart. They had 3 children together, but Bob always had a wandering eye even before his fame. He was known to be fascinated with women and sex, and with his newfound celebrity, he had more access to both than he ever could have imagined, with few women turning him down. Bob took advantage of his celebrity and had several affairs and persuaded many women to take naked photos for him. This he would keep as a souvenir. It didn't take long for his wife to get tired of Bob's antics and ask for a divorce. Bob didn't take long, however, to find a new wife when he married co-star Sigrid Valdez, with whom he had an affair with on set. Bob's penchant for sex and women stayed the same for the next 8 years of marriage. Bob soon met John Carpenter, a video equipment retailer with a sexual obsession similar to Bob's. The two quickly became good friends and began filming their own flicks. Again, because of Bob's celebrity, more than enough women were willing to join. Hogan's Heroes ended after 6 years in 1971. While many expected Bob to have a successful film career after, his obsession with sex and making their low-budget erotica flicks was ultimately his undoing. Bob only made a few guest appearances on TV for the remaining years of his life. He played guest roles and began performing in roles for dinner theaters across the country. At 49, Bob lived in an apartment leased by the adjacent Windmill Dinner Theater in Scottsdale, Arizona. Bob had been residing in apartment 132A while acting in a dinner theater performance. John Carpenter lived nearby. Bob and John went out for dinner on a hot June evening, and by all accounts seemed to be getting along, and it was just another night. Witnesses saw the two of them at a nightclub before splitting up and going separate ways. Police responded to an emergency call from Bob's residence the following morning on June the 29th, 1978. Victoria Berry, his co-star, had planned to have lunch with Bob and go over their lines. When he didn't show up, she went to his apartment to find a shocking discovery. The police discovered Bob's beaten, bloodied body on his bed inside his apartment. He was strangled with an electrical cable and had 2 large gashes over his left ear. It was a gruesome scene with blood soaking through his bedding and splattered all over the room's walls and ceiling. The police called on theater manager Ed Beck to identify Bob's bludgeoned remains, but he was so badly beaten he couldn't be identified. Beck could only see one side of his body to recognize him. Beck couldn't recognize him from another viewpoint because his injuries were so severe. Examination, according to the authorities, Bob was most likely asleep when he was attacked because there were no defensive wounds. They also suspected he knew his assailant and had probably let them into his flat at some point because there were no traces of forced entry. Given the facts and witness accounts from the previous night, authorities identified Bob's friend John Carpenter as likely suspect. The police confirmed that the 2 men were out the night before Bob was found murdered. When the authorities examined John's rental car, they discovered blood on one of the door panels. Because DNA testing wasn't available in 1978, the police could only ascertain that the blood matched Bob's blood type, which was a relatively uncommon type B. However, the presence of blood didn't imply John had murdered Bob. Police could uncover a murder weapon in John's possession, nor could they determine a clear cause for John wanting to kill Bob in the first place, so the cops let John go. Robert Crane, Bob's son, grew older and started talking about his father's murder and what he knew about his dad's lifestyle. Robert claimed his dad's sex addiction was no secret, and he could frequently see traces of Bob's addiction even in his dressing room when he was a young child. With the amount of pornography found in his flat and his association with John Carpenter, Bob's death may have disclosed to the public what he loved doing behind closed doors. Now, on the other hand, Bob's family and friends were well aware of his extracurricular activities. Robert believes his father's relationship with John contributed to his death. Robert indicated that Bob at the time was attempting to end the friendship with John and chart a better course of life for his family, and the fact that mere 10 years ago he was a household name and star of a TV show. He believes John killed Bob out of anger towards him wanting to end their friendship. 12 years later, a previously unknown crime photo appeared, prompting investigators to revisit Bob's case. The image showed what appeared to be brain matter inside John's car. However, a tissue sample couldn't prove this theory. Nonetheless, a judge concluded that the photo was acceptable in court and might be used against John. John Carpenter was quickly apprehended in Bob's murder, and in 1992, John was tried for his friend's death and had to answer for the evidence against him. However, this wasn't much. DNA testing had become available by this time. John was on trial, so the district attorney's office had the blood sample found on John's rental car examined, but the results were inconclusive. What could have been crucial evidence against John by this time had been rendered ineffective. Given the number of women Bob had slept with over the years, John's defense team speculated that an angry lover or boyfriend, or husband for that matter, was Bob Crane's killer. In 1994, the jury acquitted John due to lack of evidence and reasonable doubt. John died in 1998. To this day, Robert Crane is the only member of the Crane family who will openly talk about his father's death. Anne, his first wife, died in 2007 at the age of 77. The family still, however, seeks to have justice and find out what exactly it was that happened to their father that night in 1978. The murder of Bob Crane is still to this day an open case in Scottsdale, Arizona. And they still say if you have any knowledge as to what happened to Bob Crane that night in the summer of 1978, please contact them at 480-312-5000. What do you think happened to Bob Crane that evening? Was John Carpenter angry that Bob wanted to resume his one successful career and move on from their friendship? Was an angry husband or boyfriend behind the unsolved murder of Bob Crane? Leave me a comment on down below and let me know what you think. Till next time, thanks again everyone. Tony is out. Have a great rest of your day.